Hey there. Welcome back to Subject to Change. This is still Jim Woods. I think we're on episode 4 here. We are back on the beach. The sun is still in the sky, a few fingertips above the horizon. I got my shades on. The sun is beaming across the ocean, directly towards me, reflecting across the full surface of the ocean. And the sky is a hazy bluish green with hints of yellow. Excited to have you join again. I was thinking a little funny aside to start the episode with. An idea about time traveling. Right on the heels of talking about time in the last episode. I was thinking that the sun is setting here, it's evening here, for me, in my present. And I'm recording this, obviously, and you're listening to this sometime in the future. The future from my moment, my present right here. And I am recording this in the past from your perspective. While this is maybe all obvious, it's a pretty simple application of the framework we discussed last episode. But from the perspective of the idea, it's as if that idea traveled through space and time. The idea is being spoken by me now in this moment, and then instantaneously from the perspective of the idea, it has arrived in your head at this moment for you now. I don't know what that means or if that's anything interesting there at all. It just was an interesting idea about ideas. And in a stretch of a connection, I do think that this idea about ideas traveling through time does relate to the ultimate mission of this podcast. As I gloomily described in episode 1, I think there are many problems in society. And I think all of us can see it. I think all of us can feel it. It can certainly seem confusing, corrupt, hopeless at times. And I guess what I'm here to discuss is that I think the solutions exist. I think the solutions already exist among us. I think all the ideas we need to solve these problems have been discovered in the past. And I think they're told in our stories. The stories that we know by heart, but we've forgotten the lessons. Frankly, sometimes the most cliche lessons are the ones that we're neglecting in this moment. I think really to get out of these problems, we really just need to utilize these ideas. We need to synthesize them. We need to apply them to our modern day in consideration of our technological capabilities. And I think with rigor, wisdom, and moral virtue, there is a bright future ahead. All right, so enough of my rambling. Let's get into this. What is the purpose of this episode? This episode is in response to feedback. I appreciate everyone who has listened. Take it as the highest compliment. And everyone who's provided feedback has been quite constructive and supportive, so thank you very much. One of the pieces of feedback I received, which I think is totally merited, is that I need to go into more detail about who I am. Explain what am I doing, how did I get here, how have I approached these questions to even consider talking about these ideas. I think that's entirely merited, and I think that's appropriate. Although I will say, I'm here to discuss ideas, and I would argue, regardless of the source, ideas should be evaluated on their own merit. And I think that's actually a principle that needs to be broadly applied in society. People are not good or bad, people are good and bad. People who have good and bad in them, who have done good and bad, have good and bad ideas. And I think we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater in any regard. At the same time, we don't want to take any voices as sacred. I think we should scrutinize ideas. But nevertheless, I think it's important for me to share who I am. This probably should have been the first or second episode. But to be perfectly honest, I do not want to be a public figure. I absolutely do not want to be a celebrity. I want to talk about ideas. I want to be a private intellectual, a private philosopher of sorts. That would be my ideal situation, where my ideas are public and my life is private. And I don't think that actually is a reasonable request. Clearly, that's not going to be the case, so it doesn't really matter, but just expressing my preferences at the front end. Okay, so this episode is in response to feedback about explaining who I am. Immediately on the heels of saying that I don't want to talk about who I am, I've decided I'm going to break up my episode into multiple parts about who I am. So I want to keep these relatively bite-sized as much as I can, and I, at the same time, want to be comprehensive and transparent in terms of revealing the material aspects of myself. So I'm going to break them up, and this is going to be part 1. I don't want to give everything away on the first date. So this is part 1, and the agenda is going to be, I'm going to start with a me TLDR, just a really quick summary. If you get bored, you can skip the rest of the episode. And then I'm going to talk about my strengths and weaknesses. So TLDR, strengths and weaknesses, and then the third part is I'm going to talk about my life goals. I have 4 life goals. We're going to say them all up front, and then we're going to walk through them one by one. And then we're going to close out and give a preview of part 2. I will not be short of talking about myself, I suppose. So, me TLDR. Upon reflection, I think it's just quite simply to say that I am immensely privileged. I am privileged in effectively every way you can possibly imagine. And privilege is, I think, by definition, your relative status or gifts or abilities that are unearned. The circumstances you are in are beyond your control. I think that's, by definition, what privilege is. Zooming out and self-reflecting, I am exceptionally privileged. Just by being alive today in the United States, I am one of the most privileged humans who have ever lived. And then on top of that, in terms of like every group or categorization, I'm in the majority, preferential, whatever is desired. I am as privileged as they come. I think privilege has become a bad word in our society. And I think that's part of the issue at hand here. Other people of privilege, watch out. I think privilege can either be denied or accepted. And I think denial or acceptance leads to either entitlement or obligation. I think privilege, if it's denied, creates entitlement. I think the denial or submission to one's privilege, yet to continue to reap the benefits without trying to give back what one has received, is entitlement by definition. And frankly, I think that's a problem I see with many of the privileged in society today. And the counterpoint is if one accepts their privilege, it creates an ethical obligation, a commitment to give back based on that privilege. And that's really the way in which I view my privilege. There is a deep felt sense of commitment. And I will admit, I have already lived a life full of adventure and joy and satisfaction and excess. A life full of hardship and triumph, of setbacks and defeat. I'm entitled to nothing going forward. I could die tomorrow and I would have received more than my fair share. In summary, I've been given every advantage, I've taken every opportunity, I've sought every experience, I've made every mistake, and I've constantly strived to improve myself. I'm fiercely autonomous, self-driven, and morally resolute. Resolute to my own defined self-standards. I am a free man. I am a rogue entrepreneur, bold and brilliant. I am off-leash, untethered by constraint. I am free. So what are my strengths and weaknesses? I evidently wholeheartedly acknowledge my privilege. What does this really manifest itself in? What are my strengths and weaknesses? Many of us have been asked this question in interviews. What are your strengths and weaknesses? In general, I think for effectively every person, I think, the way I think this question can be considered is that your strengths are your weaknesses. I think each person has certain traits that are characteristic of them, that are something that they do consistently or something that they do exceptionally. And I think those are the traits that define people. And I think those traits in certain situations are strengths. And I think those same traits in other situations are weaknesses. I think actually for every strength, I think there is a corresponding weakness, and it's really a matter of perspective. And so really I think this question actually is a great question of self-reflection. So my strengths and weaknesses, I have plenty of weaknesses, plenty of strengths. At the top of the list, my confidence is my strength. I am an exceptionally self-confident person. I have a track record of success, and I am confident that I will succeed in the future. And the flip side of that, my weakness is my overconfidence. My confidence can lead me to be nearsighted or make poor decisions, especially when I'm blinded by something, when I'm absent to some knowledge that I don't know, or something misleads me emotionally. I'm certainly fallible, and my overconfidence is my weakness, just as my confidence is my strength. Another strength is my ambition, my willingness to take on massive tasks. Clearly at hand, what we are doing here. This is an audacious objective, what we're working on right now. I think it's worthwhile pursuing it, and I think it can be accomplished. So ambition is a strength of mine, and a corresponding weakness is my impatience. I don't know if I've ever been called patient in my life. I can be patient, I can practice patience. In general, I am an impatient person, constantly on the move. And that definitely is a weakness in many situations. I would say a strength of mine is my honesty and directness. I operate with the truth. Believe me, I used to lie. I'm capable of lying, and I choose not to lie. I choose to solely tell the truth. I can be silent, I can be tactful. I only speak the truth, and I choose to do that, and that is a strength of mine. But the weakness is I come to expect other people to do the same with me. When I am honest and direct with other people, I expect them to return that with me, and that is not always the case. In that sense, I'm naive and vulnerable, and on multiple times I've been burned. Similarly, a strength of mine is my high expectations for myself. I hold myself to a very high regard. And correspondingly, I have high expectations of other people. I can be quite demanding. I think it's something I've improved upon a lot, but I have high expectations of others and myself. The highest for myself, for sure. A strength of mine is I'm comfortable with disagreement. I see disagreement as a necessary pathway to compromise, to understanding, and I'm very comfortable stepping into disagreement. And the flip side of that is that I'm aggressive, hard-headed. Some would even say stubborn. I step into disagreement. Another strength is that I'm very comfortable with risk. In many ways, I'm fearless because I proactively confront all of my fears. And that lack of fear allows me to take calculated risks. The flip side of that is, though, that I can actually sometimes take on too much risk, or just the randomness of life can get me down. See below. I would say perhaps my greatest strength of all is my problem-solving capabilities. And I think that's kind of a combination of abstract thinking, being able to learn, being able to use logic, being able to use deduction, and using those techniques together to solve problems. And the flip side of my rigorous logic mind is that I often have low sympathy. There's a difference between empathy and sympathy. I'm quite empathetic. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's feelings as if you were in their shoes, to understand their situation and to know how it would feel to be in their situation. That's empathy. That's a key aspect of emotional intelligence. I believe I am quite empathetic. Sympathy is doing the same thing and then feeling that person's feelings. It's not just knowing what the feeling is, it's feeling that feeling with them. For me, this is something that's quite draining and demanding. And so I have limited capacity to do this, and so I do it on a guarded fashion. The counterpoint of high logic is low sympathy. And I would say that's the thing I'm working on most with myself at this moment, is becoming more sympathetic, validating others' feelings. When someone comes to you and something just happened to them, they don't want to hear solutions right away. That's great, that may be right, but that's not right now. In that moment, people want to be validated. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. That's what has to happen first. And then we can think about solving problems. I too quickly jump to solutions. My strength is my weakness. And this is something that I'm working on. Okay. Let's keep rolling on. We had TLDR, we had strengths and weaknesses. Now we're going on to life goals. I have 4 life goals. I'm a 33-year-old man with clearly defined life goals. They are 1, be a good father. 2, be a good husband. 3, take care of my loved ones. And 4, positively impact humanity. Be a good father, be a good husband, take care of my loved ones, which in our present day society means money. We'll circle back to that. and then positively impact humanity. What does that mean? All right, so let's run through them. Number one, be a good father. This is by far my number one life goal. I say this as a man without children, a man without a wife, a man without a girlfriend. I have wanted to be a father since I was a child. And I've given a lot of thought to the type of father I want to be, and I look forward to being not only a great father, a loving father, but also a teacher. I want to be fully engaged. I'm clearly not there at this moment, but that's the path I'm on. Having children is by far the most consequential action decision that can occur in a person's life. It's entirely life-altering. Once you become a parent, once you become a mother, once you become a father, you are always a parent. I think becoming a parent is one of the most beautiful things in life. And I think we should acknowledge and revere the transformative process that it is. So my first goal is to be a good father. And correspondingly, perhaps not surprisingly, my second goal is to be a good husband. I think in order to be a good father, you need to be a good husband. And in order to be a good husband, assuming you have children, you need to be a good father. And so I do think these goals are tied, but I also think they are separate. Being a good husband is about supporting your wife and the family you build together. And once again, I'm not dating anyone. I'm not even on the dating apps. So clearly this goal has been deprioritized for the time being. More to share at another time, but there is no traction on that front. My third life goal, take care of loved ones. My family is extremely close. I live with my twin brother. My mother lives down the street. I see them each every day. I'm quite close with the rest of my family. My other brother's in the Army. We all love each other. It's an exceptionally healthy relationship. Hats off to my mom. Taking care of loved ones in today's society practically means money. And on that front, I will just say, in short, that I'm woefully behind the bill. I will not go into details in this part, but I will just say last year I made a decision that knowingly fucked up my life. I decided something that sacrificed myself in pursuit of what I thought would be a better outcome for others. And I can't speak on more of it now. I will discuss more in the future. Right now, I am entirely broke, and I'm in significant personal debt. I have no savings, and I'm getting by month to month. In some ways, I feel like I'm the true capitalist here. I do feel like if you have no cash, no savings, a ton of debt, and you're actually somehow surviving joyfully in some way, I think that's maybe capitalism at its finest. I don't know who's offended by that. Maybe everyone, maybe no one. Let's think about it. I do have some phrases, though, that I've been repeating to myself. One is that I'm broke, but I'm not broken. I very much believe that. I think my financial situation is temporary, and in the near future, I will be on far more stable ground. So I'm not concerned. I'm broke, but I'm not broken. Another phrase I've been saying is that it's through hardship that we become stronger. Stronger through hardship. This is entirely true. Untested does not develop strength. The way we build our muscles is by stressing them. The same works for our mind and our souls. It's through hardship that we become stronger. And the third phrase I say is, if you are the best version of yourself now in this moment, how can you not feel optimistic about the future? I can truly say, in many regards, that I'm the best version of myself today. And if that's the case, how can I not feel optimistic about the future? And so the fourth goal, positively impact humanity. You're listening to it. This is at least my current attempt at it. I'm exploding with ideas. That's the only way I can describe it. I go to bed and I wake up with new ideas. And I'm here to start conversations and work towards better outcomes. And I do think the conversation we're having warrants a warning of caution. I believe a mission of this magnitude deserves careful and ongoing scrutiny. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. When we're talking about humanity, we do not want a megalomaniac or a narcissist or a fascist in charge. We do not want a dictator. And I say this expressly looking forward to 2024. Donald Trump thinks of himself as a dictator. If he wins, he will be a dictator. If he doesn't win, he will claim he won. If he does win, which is the most probable outcome, how will the left respond? I understand why many people follow him and many people support him. I understand the unacceptability of the alternatives. Joe Biden is not the answer, nor anyone behind him on the bench. This country is in extreme tension. The device you're listening to this on is part of the problem. We are all connected, but we're not all on the same page. I am fearful of fascism. We do not want a dictator. And this begs the question, how did I get here? How have I come to discuss such grand ambitions? How have I approached this audacious goal regarding humanity? Humanity, it's obtuse, it's massive, it's complex, it's contradictory. How did I get here? How have I approached this? I'll just say, I've taken the long road through life, and I'm just here to share some shortcuts. So in part 2, I'm going to explain the path that I've taken, and I'll help to explain more about who I am. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon.